Hello, everyone. I'm Lawrence Singleton, Dean of the Lubin School of Business. I'd like to welcome you to the Dean's Roundtable. I'm honored today to have with us Mr. Nick Debellis, who is the President and CEO of Elite Sampling and Media Group, LLC. Mr. Debellis is President and CEO of that company. His company is a leading provider of targeted product sampling, promotional, and sponsorship programs. He has a vast number of owned networks and venue partnerships, as well as very successful history of brand-specific, fully customized sampling programs. He specializes in connecting consumer packaged goods and over-the-counter brands with their ideal consumer targets to effectively drive trial and purchase activities. His company offers a full suite of design, production, and fulfillment capabilities, which streamlines these programs and drives cost efficiencies for his brand clients. Nick has over 30 years of experience in consumer packaged goods, advertising, and promotional services. He founded Elite Sampling and Promotion in 2001. Before that, he was an executive vice president and partner at Whittle Communications, and he has served as a sponsorship director for the National Football League. And I just learned that he's a big New York Giants fan. Nick graduated from the Lubin School of Business in Pleasantville in 1983 with a BBA in marketing. Please welcome Nick Debellis to the Dean's Roundtable. Now, Nick, I'd like to give you a chance to tell your story a little bit. How did you get where you are? Talk a little bit about your career. That's what the students want to hear. Thank you and welcome.
Okay, sure. Well, thank you for the introduction, Larry, and welcome to the students. My name is Nick Debellis. I am a 1983 graduate of the Lubin School of Business. Hard to believe that that was 40 years ago, but I went to college my first year. I went to University of New Hampshire and then transferred to Pace, largely to play football, which I did. And Pace has a reputation as a really good school, particularly in the areas of business and marketing. So that's why I chose the major. And just to give you a quick, a review of my career, when I graduated in 1983, I took a job as a sales rep with Tetley Tea, which some of you guys may or may not know the brand name. They're the competitor to Lipton, but I can tell you, I remember it like it was yesterday, and my salary was $13,000. And I got a company car, which was a Dodge Aries K, which would get rolled over by a stiff wind on Route 684. So I didn't have the greatest job to start, but I was always, sort of diligent and dogmatic about learning. And so I was with Tetley for about a year, and then there was an advertising tracking service called Majors, Majers, which is now part of the AC Nielsen company. And they used to track feature ads in the packaged goods business. So you guys know retailers like Stop and Shop and Pathmark and such. And if a brand was advertised there, we had this national database that tracked it. So I became fascinated by this market research tool and came to find out that the company was based in Stamford, Connecticut, and basically went and knocked on their door. I went and dropped a resume off, and a couple of weeks later got a phone call, came in for an interview, and ended up getting the job. Was working there for 3 or 4 years and was lucky enough, we were doing some research for the National Football League. And I was lucky enough to, we had somebody in the office that said, hey, someone from the NFL just called. I know you like football. Why don't you call them back? So I said, absolutely, I'll call them back. And was working with them for a couple of years, tracking a particular program that they had. And learned that the person I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis was leaving the company. So I took that as an opportunity to go get a job there. So, I'm almost embarrassed to say in those days, there was no such thing as email. So I figured out who the boss was, and I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Jim, this is Nick Debellis. I'm the guy that handles the majors research. I heard Marty's leaving. Is there any way I could get a crack at that job?" And Jim said, "Sure, come on in for an interview." And I did well, and I landed that job at the National Football League. Was there for a couple of years, and sort of in the interest of always trying to better myself. That particular job was a mix of marketing and sales, and I sort of over the years gravitated to sales, um, which is just something that I love. I love cold calling. It's my passion. I can handle rejection. I've come to learn that, or at least in my mind, if I call on 100 people and get rejected 99 times, that one sale I make is enough to keep me going, to keep after it. Um, so in that context, the NFL job was a little too marketing oriented for me, and I wanted to get a pure sales job. So I found a job with a company called Whittle Communications. Whittle is no longer around, but if you guys have heard the term out-of-home media, think about ads in schools, ads in bus terminals. There's a whole industry called out-of-home media, and Whittle was a pioneer in that respect, where we had a sampling program called Good Stuff. So picture the first day you went to your PACE dorm, and you have a bare mattress and a small desk, and on the desk sits a box, and in that box is all kinds of samples that you might find relevant as a first-time college student. Maybe shave cream, deodorant, analgesics, things like that. Well, we sold that program under the auspices of the college audience being a great audience for marketers to market to, because they're on their own for the first time and making buying decisions for their very first time. So there's a lot of stories out there about Gillette where there's people that say, I got my first Gillette razor when I was in college, and I've had the same razor handle for 30 years. I just keep replacing the blades. Worked for Whittle, then kind of got back in sports, did some athlete marketing, not on-field contract marketing, but marketing. I was the marketing agent for Steve Young, who was the Super Bowl MVP in 1996. I did all of his marketing. I've done marketing for Jim Furyk, if you know golf. And then sort of, in the manner of necessity being the mother of invention, when I got out of sports marketing, I decided to go to work on my own. And I launched a company, which I still have, called Elite Sampling and Media Group, which was an offshoot of the skills that I learned at Whittle Communications, which was product sampling, and then media in out-of-home media in doctors' offices and places like that. So here I sit 23 years later. We have a very small company, a very successful company. It's a niche company. I'm the principal owner. We have, I think, 6 employees. We do revenue in the $8 million a year range. And so how did I get there? I think, I've never been afraid to take chances. I think persistency is something that is key. And what I always say to people I train in sales, I always say, never confuse non-response with rejection. And what I mean by that is there's many examples over my career when, I would send letters, I would make phone calls. There was no emails at the beginning. And, I had a particular brand at Colgate-Palmolive that I thought I had a good idea for. And, I sent 5 letters, I made 5 phone calls, never made contact with the person. And when I finally did, that person said, "Oh, I've been meaning to call you. I've just been really busy with other stuff. And yeah, let's, come on in, let's meet." There's an endless number of things like that. So I'm I'm going to stop talking, and I'll just close by saying, when you graduate, when you get your bachelor's or your MBA, just try to, if you identify a company or an industry that you really want to be in, just be really persistent about it. So let's say there's a particular company that you want to apply, or that's interesting to you for whatever reason. You can email them your resume like 1,000 other people, but if it's something you really want, and if it's a company that you really feel you can bring value to that company, do something off the wall. Find out the name of the human resources director and send them an overnight package with your resume in there, with an idea. Just find a way to break through the clutter and never give up. And that's, if I had to say, whatever success I've had in life, is not due to my superior intelligence. I could tell you that. It's due to my very competitive, proactive nature. And I learned a lot of that playing sports, playing football at Pace, where I was the quarterback of the team for 3 years, was, I think, an invaluable experience for me. People always, if you have sports or extracurricular activities on your resume, that's always, a potential tiebreaker with other prospective employees at companies. And I'd certainly be willing to answer any and all questions you guys might have about anything at all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great story you have to tell there. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand like this. You can raise your hand using the function of Zoom, well, those raise for sure. So let me turn it over to Molly, who's going to manage the questions. Molly?
Sure. I saw Mark's hand go up first.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm well. I've previously heard people give the advice that you gave about sending a unorthodox package to an HR manager. What would you recommend in addition to a resume? Like doing research on the person, something edible, something?
I would, I think you always have to think about applying for a job in the context of not so much why it would be good for you, Mark, like to say, oh, I would love to work at your company. It'd be great for me. That's not what they want to hear. They want to hear, what particular assets, what particular skill sets do you have as a person where you could bring value to that company? I'll give you, I'm always soliciting. My clients are Old Spice deodorant and any pack, L'Oreal for the females. We do a lot of business with L'Oreal. We do sampling for them. Unilever, brands like Dove and Degree are clients of ours. So if I have an idea and I'm contacting a brand manager, first of all, as compared to yesteryear, everything is available. There's something called Zoom where there's a small fee for it, but if you want to find out the human resources director for any company you want to apply to, you can find it. You get their email address, their phone number. It's out there. So if I just sent a note this morning there's a brand called Nizoral, and it's a dandruff shampoo. Not that I want to talk about my dandruff, but my scalp has been itchy, and I tried the product, and it relieved my itchiness. So as opposed to saying, hi, I'm Nick Debellis, we can do samples for you, please call me. I said, hey, I related a personal story where I said, I tried your product. I took a picture of the product that I really did purchase and attached it to the email. And I said, I'm just one customer. Your product works really well. We have a dermatologist network where we have 10,000 unique dermatologist offices across the country where we can help you generate trial and conversion. We could do what you did for me, 1,000-fold type of thing. So Mark, I would say, to relate that back to your question and the company, and certainly there's enough research available on all these companies. just put forth an idea, attach your resume and put forth an idea on, here's why I think I can bring value to your company, or have you ever thought of this or that? That
Yeah.
make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, the companies that I had in mind, they're a little sensitive because it's companies like Boeing and General Dynamics. So they're kind of private with their some of the details that you might want to research for a cold approach like that. But yeah, I definitely would tell an anecdote. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Okay, and next is Julia.
Hello, Julia.
Thank you. Hi. I'm very impressed by everything that you stated, and I think it's amazing how you really found your passion and went after it. I was wondering what were kind of changes that you had to go through, and what were problems that came with those changes, and how did you manage to solve those problems?
Great question. So I would say the main change that I had to go through was, when I was early in my career, I was, either in marketing or sales or a combination of both, and that was my sole focus. I just had to go out and sell and had to meet my quotas. When I became an owner, things changed. I was now responsible for profit and loss. I can add and subtract, but I'm about the farthest cry possible from an accountant. I had to learn QuickBooks, and basically what I did was I tried to hire some good consultants. I didn't have the money to hire a full-time accountant or attorney, and I outsourced some of those services, and it's just a process of being hungry to learn, and I had to cut back on some of my you work for a company and you get benefits, and now you got to pay for your own benefits. Everything changes. So I had to become a lot more fiscally responsible. And one thing I'm particularly proud of is somehow, some way, I was able to figure out how, even though I started my own company, I never had to borrow a dime. When I before I made the jump, I had some clients lined up, so there was revenue coming in right from the very beginning. So I think you gotta time things properly, and you always have to be willing to learn and hard work. My key to success is hard work. As an owner, I know, here again, when I worked for a company, if I had to do something on a Saturday, I was all, PO'd, like, Jesus Christ, I got to go to work on a Saturday. What's that? When you're an owner, you're at it 24/7. Even though I'm pretty much off on Saturday or Sunday, I'm always watching my email. And I think part of it is trying to find something you like to do. If you don't like what you're doing, it's going to be difficult. Don't take a job just to take a job. I would say, I don't know, what the internship situation is nowadays, but I know even in my day when I was lucky enough to get into sports without doing any internships. But if there's a particular industry that you really like and want to get into, you need to understand it might be worth your while to take an internship, and it might be a non-paying internship. And hopefully you have some supportive parents where they can understand that, because even if you're not getting paid, you go in there and do a good job, there's a 90% chance you're going to get hired. So I know I answered your question in a roundabout way, but hopefully that helped.
No, definitely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next is Pranay.
Hi, Pranay.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Yeah, it's an honor to meet you again. And then I just have like a few questions. Like, I also started my career in sales and marketing. Okay, and I also have an aspiration to become an entrepreneur. So when like deciding that you want to go to a particular field, how would you decide that being a salesman? Because we have a very wide scope of chances in whichever field or sector we want to choose. And then how did you funnel your theories? Like, how did you funnel your ideology into going to the sponsorship or into going into the NFL, like for working for NFL? How did you funnel it? I just want to know the ideology behind it so I can do it myself and maybe I can develop
Sure.
myself.
Sure. Well, honestly, my first job with Tetley Tea was just sort of, I graduated college at 21 and I just had a mindset. I just want to go to work. You know, Pace had said to me, because I had another year of eligibility in football. And they said, hey, why don't you stick around another year, go for your master's, and we'll help you with that financially. And I just, you know, in my own mind, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm done. I did my 4 years. I got my bachelor's. I'm ready to roll. I'm not going to lie to you. I took the first offer I had. I just took the job and I worked really hard and just gravitated. I tried to use my creativity to gravitate toward, you know, early in my career, a stepping stone, right? So I told the story where I was working for Tetley, making no money, but you know, I got some, you know, some legit frontline sales experience, and then I saw this research product that I became intrigued with, and I said, all right, I'm going to go. I'm going to go see if I can get a job there, and then, you know, there's an old expression that's called the harder you work, the luckier you get. You ever hear that one?
Yes, I did.
So I'm working at this research company and someone from the NFL calls looking for research. So I jumped on that as quickly as I could and just maneuvered my way in there. And then someone left and I was able to get the job and I worked really hard. I did really well there, but then got restless. Sales. So fast forward to when I started my own company, it was you had asked about, you know, why did you pick what you did? It was based upon the experience that I had gained. So I went to work at Whittle. I was selling product sampling programs. I was selling wall media. And I was faced with, oh, geez, I don't have a job. This is a good time for me to maybe try to start my own company. Well, that's going to be based on an industry where I've gathered a good amount of experience and success. So I would say pick a spot, learn as much as you can. And I have two sons. I always try to tell them, like one of my sons graduated from RIT and he's done very well. And he's like a networking, you know, he's an account manager. So he does networking for large companies. And I always say to him, you know, as you learn within your industry, always try to think of an entrepreneurial aspect where you could take your learnings and turn it into your own company. He doesn't want to do that. He thinks differently than I did, but he's like, nah, I'm good. I work like 25 hours a week. I make good money, do what I want. I work remotely and I'm not you. But it's whatever you're happy with. It sounds like you want to be an entrepreneur. It comes with risk. It comes with maybe more hard work, but there's people out there like my son who are content doing what they're doing. You know, I'm making good money. They're paying my benefits. I'm not killing myself. I don't want to be taking phone calls on Saturday and Sunday. I don't want to hear about employees complaining to me. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It all depends what you want.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, next is Jocelyn.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Hello, I was
Hi
just
there.
curious about, hi. I was just curious about your transition into becoming an employee to being your own boss, and what was the most vital step you did in the process?
Good question. Lost a lot of sleep. I think the probably the most important thing I did was I just put a stake in the ground and said, I'm going to do it. I have a very supportive wife. She always believes in me. She said, if this is what you want to do it. And a lot of times you just fall into these situations. Truthfully, when I was doing sports marketing, there was a guy who was there who was thinking about buying into the company and decided not to, and approached me and said, "Hey, you want to come with me?" And that's what I ended up doing. And then even when I separated from him, I figured out we weren't really like-minded people. I said, "All right, well, I'm going to take my 25 years experience in product sampling and out of office or out of home media, and I feel like I have enough experience and skills in that arena where I'm gonna give it a go." And I ended up a friend of mine who was also had a lot of experience in the industry. I ended up convincing him to come with me, and we've been together for 22 years. So it's really just believing in yourself, having a plan, and just going out and doing it. And if it's,
Okay,
I think you
thank
have
you.
to do it with the understanding that if it doesn't work, then you can go back to, safer way, so to speak.
Okay, next is Sophia.
So you talked a bit about maybe not loving your first job, and you took the first job that was offered. I'm hoping you can give some words of advice to our students who are graduating soon, and maybe they're not getting many offers at places they would like. What kind of motivated you to push through that first job, and what advice would you have to some of our students?
Well, two things. I would say, with regard to the companies that you have pursued, if it's a company you really want to go work for and you have compelling reasons for that, try to do something out of the box. I'll tell a story. When I had started Elite, one day I was sitting in my office, and this handsome guy walks in a suit, and we owned a Victorian house, and I was like working on the upstairs, and this guy's standing in my door, and I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Yeah, my name is Joe Day. I'm a former professional hockey player, and I read about your company in the Sports Business Daily, and I flew in here from Chicago, and I want to work for you." And I hired him on the spot. Probably didn't pay him as much as he needed to make or deserved, but he was smart enough to say, "All right, well, I've been playing professional hockey my whole life. I have no work experience. How can I break through the clutter with this particular company or companies that I really want to work for?" And if there's a company or companies that you really want to work for and it's just not working for whatever reason, I would encourage you to expand your search, and don't be, I'll tell more stories about. I have two sons and I'm always frustrated by their lack of persistence. Like we'd talk about, okay, I'm gonna look for a job here, and I'd say, "Well, did you send so and so an email?" "Yeah, but they never responded, so I guess they're not interested." "Well, how do you know that?" "Send them another email. Send them a letter. Show up on their doorstep." That's kind of the advice that I would offer. And if it's, don't be. I would say, at the onset anyway, it's more important to get job experience rather than holding out for the ideal job, which you very well might never get, if that makes sense.
Okay, next
Good.
is Srishti.
Yeah, so I did have a question, but I still have a question from what you said. So as you said that, like write a letter or write another email, just go to that doorstep. Wouldn't that look like you're too desperate for the job, or you're being submissive in a way? And give them an advantage over just to feel like you're needy. Does it at any point get like that?
There's a fine line between being aggressive and being pushy. And that's also, I would say applying for a job is the same, that's the same thing I face in sales every day. And it's a consideration. Like, I'll give you a real life example. This morning, I have some prospective business to finish with Procter and Gamble. We're doing some sampling, and actually this one was L'Oreal, where we're doing some sampling for some of their hyaluronic acids, and we got something. There's some unanswered questions, and so I'm thinking in my head, it's Monday morning. Is it too early? Should I let them have their cup of coffee, or should I wait till after lunch? Those are things that you think about and face every day. And I guess what I would say in that realm is I always err on the side of being aggressive rather than not. So I really don't think, as long as your communication is pointed, and polite and professional. Like, I wouldn't, if you send a resume, I would, an example, and I could send you guys, if you guys want anything like example emails afterwards, I could send you just some samples to show you how I approach it. But I think a second or third communication might be, hey, I know I had emailed you, a couple of weeks back. I don't want to not to be a pest, but here's why I think I can bring value to your company, and why I think, what I always had, what I always try for, and the world has changed a lot. Like I said, when I first started work, there was no email, there was no World Wide Web, so all the communicating and all the interaction was done either by phone or by written letters. But things have changed nowadays, so it's really all email. Like, unless I have a relationship with someone at Procter and Gamble, it's impossible to get them on the phone because they don't answer their phone, and they're working remotely half the time. Like, how do you track them down? So the sort of the go-to means of correspondence has become email. And I'll always ask, hey, can we have a 15-minute phone call? I'm not going to waste your time. No obligation, nothing ventured, nothing gained. That's sort of my tact. It's aggressive, but it's not, hey, didn't you get my email? How come you haven't responded? It's not of that nature. And again, to the degree that you could bring forth an idea that's custom to that particular company, or an idea on specifically why you can make a difference at their company, I think will help you to stand out.
That's interesting. So another question that I had was, I am a student of MS in Financial Management, and I'll soon be applying and going for interviews, applying for internships and going out for interviews. So one thing I wanted to ask was, like, in a realistic scenario, which is not always told to us, that people want to learn from you and see what they can gain, correct? When you're going out for an interview, that is what they see. But does this also happen to be a matter of attitude and difference of opinion, conflict of opinion, where people are like, this person is overly, how do you say, like rude, or feels like over smart in a way, and they don't want to like learn from you, but they just feel like, no, you're being over smart, and they don't want to hire you.
I think I understand what you're asking. And again, I think it's that balance between being aggressive and assertive, and too aggressive and assertive. I think what I always tried to do throughout my career in the interview process is I would always I had my pad and paper, and I had my questions. I think you want to show that you've prepared for the interview. So it's, you know, you know, and it doesn't, I don't think it's a bad sign to take out your book and say, you know, I put together a couple of questions. Would you mind if I asked you? And then write down the answers. So you're showing the prospective employer that you're not just showing up for any and all interviews you can get. You're specifically prepared for this company and have formulated a set of questions that are unique to that company. But I could see your face. You have a nice way about you. You have a nice smile, and I don't. You know, it's just all about presenting yourself in a professional, positive way.
That's insightful. The part where you said like having a notebook is not unprofessional in a way, and it does bring you out as a ready person. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I always also, since I know you know, Zoom, a lot of the calls that I do are still you know, phone calls where you don't see the people. So if I'm making a presentation to a brand on why they should do something with me, I have it all scripted out. Right? It's written, and I try to use the right tonality to make sure that I don't sound robotic in my approach. But I just, you know, I have my pad and paper, even though I've been doing this for 30 years. I want to, again, it's no different now than it was when I was applying for a job. I want them to feel like I've really prepared and I'll have, you know, I'll have my own ideas on that particular brand all written down just to make sure that I don't forget. And there's no harm in that. There's no shame. It just shows, to me, it just shows preparedness.
Okay, next is Kim.
Hi.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Kim.
Early on in your intro, you said that you knew from the get-go you wanted to go into sales. And
Right.
I'm curious, what did you recognize in yourself, what qualities, and as you've gone on to be to own your own business, what are you looking for in prospective workers, your sales force? When you meet them for the first time, that you think they might make a good salesperson.
Right. Yeah. So really, you know, I had my first job was a pure sales job, and then when I went to work for the research company, it was sort of a hybrid. It was a combination of marketing and sales. So I would make presentations to brand managers at companies like, well, it's Kraft now, but it used to be General Foods in White Plains, and I was a young guy making presentations to VP of marketing and brand managers. But on the other side of that, we always had to go out and try to sell new accounts. I got much more of a charge out of the sales side of it. I just found it very rewarding, even though the failure rate's very high. Even I would consider myself to be a good salesman, you fail more often than not. On the other hand, I worked with some very bright people who went, like one woman in particular went on to be the president of PepsiCo. And I can remember we were both very young, and she said to me one day, she's like, "Man, I can't believe you're doing this." She goes, "I would rather die than cold call someone," you know. So it all depends. To me, marketing was, I just found it to be kind of boring. Like you'd have to go to the office, you're sitting in your chair every day. Sales was much more diverse, and it was I just found the successes, even though they're always few and far between, to be more rewarding. You know, like I said before, the one success, and most of my sales over my career have been from ground zero, you know, starting with a blank piece of paper. It's a cold call, and you take that all the way, you know, over the goal line and you get business, God, that's to me, that's really rewarding. But you have to go back to my son. Here's a kid who was a professional ball player, good looking kid, confident in sports, but he's tried sales jobs and he hates them. He said, I can't sit there and cold call people every day, and I just can't take the rejection. I can't take the failure. I think you have to know yourself. You don't want to put yourself in a job where you're sort of setting yourself up for failure. And a salesperson can take rejection. A salesperson is persistent. A salesperson never confuses non-response with rejection, like I said. And if that's not for you, then I think you'd be better suited to pursue a career in marketing or finance or whatever other discipline you feel might be better suited to you.
Thank you. And if I may, I have another question.
Sure.
Given the line of work you've been in, there's been so many changes since, I imagine, since when you graduated. I mean, I'm thinking of coupons and marketing and now everything's digital and sampling and creative sampling. And I guess I'm really curious how you're able to stay on top of the latest trends and move forward, to stay competitive and knowledgeable about what's around the corner.
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right, Kim. But when I first started in the business years ago, like I said, there was no internet, and sampling was pretty nuts and bolts. Okay, a brand they want to reach women 25 to 54. So how do you do that? Well, we could do it. We could sample in fitness centers. We find various venues that, where that particular audience is present by and large. But the industry has evolved where nowadays a lot of the marketing is digital, as you say, but the sampling has gotten very sophisticated. So I'll give you an example. A lot of marketers like to target competitive brand users, right? So Pepsi doesn't want to reward a consumer that already drinks Pepsi. They want to find someone who drinks Coke and give them an incentive to try Pepsi, to try to create a new user effectively. So what did we do in that case? We aligned ourselves with some data partners that had the information. So I have, it's called list providers. So there's probably 5 or 6 companies across the country that I could go to and say, I'm working on a project right now for L'Oreal. L'Oreal wants to do direct mail sampling, and they want to target consumers that have never purchased L'Oreal Paris in the past, but have purchased from a competitive set of brands. And this particular data partner can get me that data. And he gets it from the credit card bureau. So if Kim Turner has purchased, let's just pick a competitive brand, Olay, and that happens to be one of the competitive brands L'Oreal wants to pick from. If you've purchased that brand on your debit card or your credit card, I probably have access to your postal address and your email address from the credit bureau, and I can buy those names. So we then go back to the company and say, okay, I got 400 and something thousand people that have purchased competitive brands that we can target on your behalf, either by direct mail or by email. And then what I've done is I've aligned myself with printers and fulfillment companies that can do all the work so that we can position ourselves as one-stop shopping. So L'Oreal, they send us the samples. We're going to tip the samples to a card, let's say. We give them the creative specifications. They design the creative. We print it. I have printers that print that for me. And then we send it to the fulfillment company to tip the sample. And that same fulfillment company will mail the product out to the consumers. So that's a real world example of how we've evolved from being, and also I should note that to L'Oreal, that this is all invisible to them. It's happening behind the scenes. as far as they know, I own the printers, I own the, the fulfillment company, which I don't. But as long as, if it can get done where L'Oreal can send their samples to one place and not have to worry about anything beyond that, that's an advantage for them because they don't have to use 3 partners to get a job done. And, that's how we've evolved. It's having our ear to the ground, knowing where we can buy data, not having 5 or 6 printers at our fingertips so we can bid projects out and get marketers the best prices. Same thing with fulfillment. We have different fulfillment companies that we use across the country.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nick, let me follow on that. You talked about how the things have changed, no internet and no email and stuff like that when you were in school. And you gave a great example. You just went through about how things have changed. In terms of students who want to prepare themselves best to go into this world that you live in now, are there specific skills they should focus on while they're here? I mean, analytics comes to mind. That seems like a hot one. I don't know. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Are there specific things that they should focus on to help them be more successful?
Yeah, I mean, the data, you're right, Larry. Data analytics is a big thing. Like, let's go back to a Procter and Gamble. So you have a brand manager or Secret deodorant. I'm just picking a brand. That brand manager is responsible for the entire P&L of the brand, the marketing, the advertising dollars, and promotional dollars, putting the plans in place. But that brand manager will work hand in hand with an analytics manager. So if I said so if I'm doing a sampling program for Secret, I could say to them, okay, it's called BDIs, it's Brand Development Index by market. What markets are what are your most important markets? They would go to the data analytics manager and give me those answers. I think that analytics is a to me, it's a fascinating business category to be able to learn about your brands and all the nuances of why you're doing well in certain pockets and not in other pockets, A and B counties versus C and D counties. And, do you spend against your strength or do you spend against weakness? Because most marketers will spend against their strength because they don't want to lose it. P&G is very much of that mindset. Like, okay, these are our strongest 10 markets. Let's heavy up in those markets so we can keep our position of strength. And focusing in opportunity markets becomes secondary. I think marketing is a great field. And here again, it's on the sales side. You have to know yourself. It all depends on, would you be more comfortable in an office job where you're going to the office every day? Do you think you would more like the diversity of sales where you're out on the road? Do you like to travel? Can you handle rejection? All those type of things that it's just understanding oneself. And, I think the thing I would say is I look at today's generation, and not to knock you guys at all, but the world has changed and people, I don't know it. I just look at, we seemed a little bit hungrier, and I think our generation might be a little more willing to drive up the down ramp if necessary. Whereas today's generation is a little more, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid, or, I sent that person an email and they didn't respond, so I don't want to bother them. But as long as you approach it in the right way, what's the worst thing that can happen? Someone says, hey, look, we're not hiring right now. Go away. Or, you're a little too aggressive. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah, and I want to encourage other people to ask questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, but there's one more I want to ask you myself. I hear from relatively frequently from students I meet with that I will give them some suggestion of what they should do. Oh, I just don't have time for that. My day's so busy. How do you go about managing your calendar, managing your day? Time management, I think it's really, really, many people would think is really, really important. How do you do that? How did you do it when you were starting out, and how do you do it now?
I think, you know, it's interesting you say that. I had the same discussions with my son, and, you know, he's entrapped in what he considers to be a crappy job. And, well, you know, I said, are you getting some resumes out? Well, I don't have time. You know, I'm at my desk. Well, you know, there's weekends. The beauty of email, Larry, is you don't have to catch someone at their phone. Here's another trick that I like to use. You know, you could send someone an email at 6 o'clock in the morning. You could send them an email at midnight. It doesn't have to be a phone call where you're getting them on the phone. And sometimes that's going to, I mean, I've done things like that, not by design where I'm trying to impress somebody, but like I'll send an email out at 2 o'clock in the morning because, you know, I happen to be thinking about something, rolling around in bed. And I said, you know what, let me just go do this. And the person on the other end might say, whoa, you know, you were up late last night, but you find the time for the important stuff. Just find the time. And if you are, you know, tied up with classes, or, you know, you have your first job and you know you're not happy there and you want to find another job, do it during off hours. Do it during off hours.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other questions for Nick? All right. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking time out to be with us today. You have a very interesting story, starting with your football days at Pace and continuing up to where you are now. I really appreciate you taking time out to be with us. We have a small token of appreciation. Unfortunately, I can't hand it to you over the Zoom camera, so be looking for it at your home sometime soon.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and I would, if anyone is interested in, you know, in the spirit of trying to break through, to find that job or to find a better job or whatever, if you're interested in seeing some sample emails, stuff that I've sent out, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I think I've shared my email. I'd love to help you. And I love Pace. You know, I deal with people at Procter & Gamble that, you know, most of the P&G brand managers are Harvard MBA types, Stanford Business School. But the fact that I went to Pace University and don't have a master's has never held me back. So be proud of the Lubin School of Business, or, you know, whatever school you're out at Pace. And it's not so much about the university you went to. It's about you, the person, and you know, what you do with your life and how aggressive you want to be in doing so.
Good words of advice. Thank you so much again. And thanks everybody for being here with us today on the Dean's Roundtable. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.